Hey everybody, my name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedMusic.com, and I'm recording this video to teach you the beginning ideas of musical theory. Basically, so that way if you want, you can compose music using your favorite software or instruments. Because once you basically kind of get the idea of what the notes are and how music's put together, you can kind of teach yourself any instrument and any way of making music, because you'll kind of know what you're looking to do. So first let's talk about the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale is a scale where there's 12 musical notes. So A sharp, B, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. Okay, 12 notes. The sharps could also be known as flats. So A sharp could also be thought of as B flat, meaning it's below B, but higher than A. So just to give you an example of the chromatic scale, let me go to FL Studio where I have the FL keys. So basically, if I went from that C, C, and then hit the black key, A, so that's C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. Okay, not very musical. Doesn't sound necessarily pretty. It's like, because if you're just playing all the notes, see, it doesn't sound very pretty. It's called dissonance, which can be nice in little spurts and little splashes of dissonance in the middle of a song. But generally, songs of lots of dissonance aren't going to get you many fans. Although sometimes they can have some very artistic uses. So back to here. Now generally when you move from one note up, so from A to A sharp, that's called a half step. So if I go like this, C, C sharp, that's a half step. But if I go from C to D, that's a whole step, because I'm moving up two notes of the chromatic scale. So that's the deal there. Cool. Now, generally, understanding the major scale is the first and sort of most important part when it comes to knowing musical theory. There's lots of different scales and ways you can use the notes to get all sorts of different vibes, but you want to get sort of the major vibe. So that's basically, this is the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So using C, now again, there's something called the root note. This is where the note that you start on, it doesn't have to be A, B, C, D. It doesn't have to be, it could be any of them. But the idea is that in the listener's mind, the first note they hear is the root. So they kind of like mentally hinge everything else they hear based on that first note that they hear. So you may be playing the same, let's say 5, 6, 7 notes, but depending on which note you hit first, the way those other notes play in the listener's mind will be based on that first note that they heard. Okay? So if you're playing, let's say, the C major scale, generally the first note you want to play is C. Okay, so that way everyone uses C as their sort of benchmark in their mind. But the major scale, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, you take your root note, we'll say C, you move up a whole step, D, another whole step, E, then a half step, F, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and you get your scale. Okay, so the reason I use C is because C is technically all the white keys. So technically if I go like this, do, re, mi, oh, I'm off today. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, and that's the C major scale. Those 7 notes, technically all the white keys. That's why generally, you know, when you're just in front of a piano and you don't have time to really think quickly about it, a lot of times people play in the key of C because it's, you know, if you hit all the white keys, you're in the key of C. Okay, cool. But like I mentioned, you can be playing the same notes but using a different root, and that gives a whole different feel. So out of these 7 notes, the major scale, you could derive different versions if I started on the note D or note E and use those same 7 notes, and those are called the modes. So it's basically the same thing, like the first mode, which is the major scale, the Ionian scale. It's just basically what we did before, the whole step, half step, whole step, half step that we did before. But if I were to take those same 7 notes but start on D instead of C, we would call that the D-Dorian scale. And the thing about it, now I put in parentheses minor because it has a minor feel to it. It sounds sad. So for example, okay, if I were to sit there and play notes starting with D, see, it sounds more sad. Okay? And same thing with each of the modes. Some of them are major, which means they sound more happy. Some of them are minor, which means they sound more sad. Okay? So it was Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian. Now the Aeolian scale is the other major one, because generally when you hear people say, "Hey, we're in the minor scale," they're usually referring to the Aeolian mode. Okay, so it's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's technically why the white keys are those notes, because back in the day they used to just write everything in minor. Like minor was the scale, so those 6 notes. So that's why A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, and then later on, just people's taste in music change, and we have the scales that we have today. But Aeolian is what we normally call the minor scale, and that starts generally it's a mode when you start from the 6th note in the Ionian scale. So which would be A when we look at Ionian, but we're starting from A here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So let's see here, A, B, C. This is C, D, E, F, G, A. So here we go. Okay, sad sounding. So those are the modes. Okay, now chords are just when you play more than one note at the same time. Okay? Now generally, let's take a major chord is when you take the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th note in the major scale of that root note. So for example, using the key of C, since it's the easiest one to sort of explain with, take the 1st note, C, the 3rd note, so that'd be C, D, G, A, and B. Wait, let me see that again. C, D, oh, E, C, D. So E would be the 3rd, E, F, G, and G would be the 5th. So if I hit them all 3 together, you get a major chord. And usually you get a chord when you play every other. If you start from that note, then play every other note in the scale, so you get 3 notes, you have some sort of chord. So like generally the way it works is that with the first, so I'm starting with the C scale, the 1st note, I got C major. Then if I do it from the 2nd note, D, I'll have D minor, then E minor, then F major, G major, A minor, and then you get a weird chord for the B. It's not very pretty. Okay. This is cool. Just so we establish that. Now minor would be if I took the 3rd. So in this case, for the C note, the 3rd would be the E, because it's C, D, E. That's major. I would have to flatten the 3rd. So instead of playing this, I flatten it I go down 1 half step, and I play that note, and this would be the minor chord. So major, minor. And then suspended fourth and suspended second, what you're doing is just replacing the third with either the fourth or the second note. So you would end up with something like this. So suspended second would be, for C would be this. Suspended fourth would be this. So let me play all three at the same time. But you get the idea. Okay. Now progression is when you take multiple chords and play them in a sequence to kind of get a vibe for they give kind of the song's vibe. Now the most popular progression is the 1, 5, 4. So what you do is you play the first chord, the chord whatever it is for the root note, then a chord for the 5th note in the scale, and then the chord for the 4th note in the scale. And then you go back to the first. Okay, and if that sounds familiar, it's because probably like every major pop song probably plays off that one progression, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's not just the progression that determines the song itself, it's the rhythm, it's the timbres of the different sounds and instruments and how they interplay with each other. There's also different things that make a song a song. The quality of the singing, the quality of the playing, the nuances, so all sorts of different things that make a song a song. But that's sort of a very popular chord movement in the songs. Okay. So that sort of gives you an introduction to musical theory. I mean, so if you're playing with something like FL Studio, just to kind of show it in practice, what you could do is you put the progression with the first 4 chords. So I'll make this easy for myself by using this thing. Major chord, okay, so once you have the progression there, then you know you can just play any chords in C into the key, or any of the notes in C in it. Above that, you should be okay. So just get rid of that now. That's how you can use musical theory to make your productions. Okay, have a great day.